and social impact in Houston. My name is Troy Spanier. I'm the co-founder of Impact Hub Houston. And if you're curious as to what Impact Hub is, it is a global organization in 102 countries across the world where places are dedicated to social enterprise. For Houston, that means that we're dedicated to inspiring, connecting, and empowering social problem solvers in our city, many of whom are in the audience, some who are impact investors, and others who are partners. We thank you so much for coming. We thank you for coming to LILIE and Jamie here, if you haven't met her. Jamie is the executive director of LILIE, and we're very excited to be able to co-host this event together. I'm going to introduce the panel in 1 second. Before I do that, I wanted to introduce the Texas Impact Alliance, who's doing a project that will really help us map our ecosystem. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Crystal.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you to Impact Hub and to LILIE for hosting this great event. Thank you for all of you forward-thinking people that are here today. We talked to you a little bit about the project that we're working on. It is the Texas Ecosystem Map. Essentially what we're doing is we're mapping social enterprises and impact investors in the state of Texas so we can build better connectivity between the different markets. I'm with the Southern Impact Investing Alliance. We're a nonprofit. It's really focused on building the impact investing ecosystem here. And this is Crystal. I'll let her introduce herself with impact.
So I'm Crystal. I'm a business consultant, and I specifically help businesses in reference to creating or scaling a social environmental impact. And we know there's a need out there for you guys to get more connected to resources and best practices, and that's essentially what we're here to do to help you do that.
And so we have these pretty little flyers at the very back on that table next to the sign. Please just pick one up, scan the QR code, or go to the link there to fill out a survey. And this is going to be an open source project that's going to really help build the field. So we look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's get to our next panel. So many people have experienced this particular challenge, which is how do I do good and how do I make a living? How do I make this sustainable? How do I make this actually work? And that's the purpose of this next session. We have Ravi Brahma, who's the Director of Student Innovation at the Houston Community College in Entrepreneurship. And we also have a distinguished panel of entrepreneurs who are doing good and who have tinkered, pivoted, have figured out how to create sustainable revenue models to achieve greater impact. So I'm going to turn it over to Ravi, and hope you enjoy the panel.
Thank you, Troy. So can I just get a quick show of hands to how many are actually dealing with this issue of figuring out who the end user is and who's actually paying the bills? So show of hands. Okay. All right. So I'm just thinking we go straight into Q&A, right? Because there's a lot, right? You saw a lot of hands going up. So Shiroi asked me to just moderate this panel. My goal really is for us to learn about our panelists, and then and what they've accomplished, but then also really to get your questions to them, so we could all learn and make it meaningful for you, other than just going over. But we do have some predefined questions, but I'd love for, so Roland, Jimmy, and Rafael, we're all on first name basis now because we met for the past 10, 20 minutes. So we're cool now, and all three of them have a story to share. So could you guys, tell us about you? Obviously, we want to learn about you and how you started the group, the venture or the enterprise that you have now, and then really, can you answer the question, who is benefiting from your venture? And then who's paying for your venture, okay? And then this mic will be for Q&A. So I'm actually going to step out into the audience, and then when we're ready, we'll take Q&A on this mic. Fair? Okay, go ahead.
So my name is Roland Bartowski. I'm president of TXRX Labs. I think people often ask us what we do, and that's complicated. Because we do a lot of different things. Really, we do four kind of specific, I guess you call them business lines or whatever. I'm not a business person, so I don't know. But we do youth training, we do job training, we do ideation work for startups and legacy companies and larger organizations, and then we also do community outreach. each of those kind of lines that we do actually feed into the other lines of work that we do. I think that's something that's kind of important about social, I guess called social enterprises, is that oftentimes the kind of traditional pathways that one would find to creating value, getting customers, having a product, don't really work. And what you have to do is find novel ways to leverage the resources that you have available, the funders that you have available, and the revenue streams you have available. And we kind of found that by creating a program in each area and then finding how that program actually ended up creating value in one of the other programs. I can talk to that later on, but that's basically who we are. I don't know if that's a good
That's
answer.
great.
I think your question was, who are our customers? And maybe I would say, what are our product? That's all the thing that I always think about is like, most people think of people, your customers, as the people who pay you. But I think in social entrepreneurship, we think of the customers as the people who are using our service. But oftentimes that's not really the case. For instance, our job training program, most people would think of our customers as the candidates that are seeking training and then receiving that training and then getting jobs. That's not who our customer is at all. Our customer is Texas Workforce Commission, United Way, the manufacturers that use our apprentices. Those are our real customers. In fact, the customers that most people think of are really our product. We basically train people and then sell them effectively off, to these companies to employ them at higher wages. And so in each of those areas, kind of, we have, I think, a unique customer. For instance, in innovation, that's probably a little more just clear cut, but our customers there are large corporations and legacy businesses and startups that want to leverage all of the kind of volunteers who are engineers, scientists, and kind of researchers who come and participate in our other programs, and then we capture as kind of consultants to provide ideation and prototyping and work for them. Within our youth program, the kind of non-college STEM track training we provide to Title I youth in our area. Those are really our product, and the clients are really all of the different kind of foundations and other organizations like HISD that want to drive that type of activity. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag in each field who our client and what our product is, but hopefully that makes a little bit of it.
Yeah, and then those of you who are not familiar with TXRX Labs, they are a physical place where, he defined just few of the functions, but it's more than 4 different things that you service and products with, right?
Yeah, so at the heart of it, we have a 60,000 square foot, soon to be 300,000 square foot, basically fabrication and kind of training facility. So it incorporates woodworking, machining, welding, 3D printing, electronics, art, craft, kind of jewelry, photography, pretty much anything that you can think of, we like to do. And so that's really the base of it, is that facility. Those kind of lines of business, I guess you call them, come out of that physical facility.
Awesome. All right, so Jimmy, you also have a brick and mortar. So the same question for you, just to tell us a little bit about you and what the business is, and then who actually benefits and who's paying.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jimmy Perez. I am the manager of La Chamba Cafe. First of all, pretty much my background is making sure that the agency successfully becomes, actually, La Chamba is a program which is the first social enterprise for Sarah Jobs, which is the nonprofit organization. So my responsibility is to help make sure that La Chamba becomes self-sustained. So we haven't met that because we're in the soft opening phase right now, which is a big thing as well, because we're learning all the operational processes, making sure that we're ironing out pretty much everything that we come across with, whether it's working with vendors and building stronger vendor relationships, but also providing the type of training that's going to be beneficial to the young adult who's participating, and in this case will be the person or the person of benefit, as that's part of the whole approach of making sure that we're selling a good cup of coffee, but at the same time, each cup of coffee is reinvesting back into the training program that's helping the young adult learn about entrepreneurship skills, leadership skills, accountability skills, as well as sustaining a job. Learning about communication amongst other peers, and this is provided through the cost of what we're generating at La Chamba. So that's the return, basically. What was the other question?
So you kind of answered it where you're saying that coffee drinkers are paying for students to get this education, and you called it entrepreneurial education, skill building.
Absolutely.
So you're supporting students differently.
Yeah, and a lot of times is that it's not like we're training someone. Just so happens that it's a coffee shop, right? But it's not to necessarily train someone to be a barista and say, this is your career path, move forward, apply to Starbucks or apply to this other coffee shop. It's more of we're using the coffee shop experience or La Chamba as the vehicle to help someone from point A to point B in their career opportunity choices. So in the meantime, they're learning about how to keep a job, and everything that's included within that, with whichever type of transferable skill that they can learn at La Chamba, they can hopefully put that into practice and keep the ball dribbling, in other words, to the other agents, the other company that they're gonna be applying with and working, therefore creating that career upskill.
And to put this in perspective for some of us Houstonians, both TXRX and La Chamba is in the east side of Houston. So those of us who are aware of the geography, there's a greater need in the community to have these services. So if I had to paraphrase that, you are a student-run coffee shop instead of on steroids on coffee.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
Coffee and tea as well, and
Got it.
smoothies.
Awesome. Okay, so Rafael, tell us a little bit about your business model and who are you supporting and who's actually paying the bills?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Rafael Alvarez. I'm the founder and CEO of Genesys Works, which is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that changes the trajectory of life of underserved high school students by training them in things like information technology and accounting, but more importantly, placing them to work in internships in major corporations during their senior year in high school, the entire senior year in high school. So students go to school in the morning, they go to work in the afternoon, and through that experience, they get to realize that succeeding in the corporate world is not that hard. And that realization changes the mindsets, and mindsets drive actions, and actions drive outcomes. We are a social enterprise, and we like to call ourselves a social enterprise because we focus on both the social and the enterprise. And from an enterprise standpoint, we charge corporations for the services our students provide, not unlike any other contracting firm. But our students are focused on the entry-level segment of IT services, or accounting, or engineering drafting, or we started in Chicago coding initiative. So we focus on the entry-level segment of the market, and then our corporate clients actually are billed for the services that students provide. And that earned income helps us fund the salaries of the students. These are not unpaid internships, these are very much paid internships, but also provides funding for the support that we need to provide to the students. So overall, we're about a $30 million organization a year with operations in 7 cities in the United States. And of that, about 17 million comes from the earned income that we charge, or 18 million comes from earned income, and the rest comes from philanthropy.
Wow. So doing good, and then also having profitability or sustainability to grow it. So congratulations to all three of you for being where you are today and growing it into 7 cities. That's awesome. So I just want to know if there are any questions now, and otherwise I've got a predetermined question. So any questions that scream at you? There are 2 brick and mortars, right? Physical entities. Obviously, you didn't just start. And then they're similar to a staffing model. You've got an entity that is training and placing employees, interns, and there's a funding model. So any questions for our panelists? We'll ask another question otherwise. behind me. So do you mind passing this to?
Sure. Rafael, that's being a non-profit, 1C3, having the most of the revenue of income from services. How difficult is to deal with IRS? That's in terms of once you start to have enough volume, right? In terms of audits, in terms of it's very technical, practical stuff.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Thank you, Jose Luis. So when I started Genesys Works 16 years ago, there was, and there continues to be today, what's called the public support test. The public support test is an equation that you have to submit in your tax return, which is called the 990. And the public support test basically assures the IRS that you are supported by the public, and it's not just one or two entities that are supporting your whole organization, right? It used to be 16 years ago that earned income did not become part of the equation. And so actually earned income hurt you. The more earned income you could have, the more you were at risk of losing your public status. You lose your public status, you lose your 501c3, then you don't have an ability to raise money. Okay? About 10 years ago, the IRS changed that. Maybe more than that, maybe 12 years ago. And now earned income is part of the numerator, which for organizations that are actually using earned income, it actually helps them with the public support test. So whereas we came close to being at danger, and we were forecasting, we didn't know how we were going to cross that bridge, right? Now we have nothing to worry about because our earned income actually helps us.
So to add to that, all three of them are 501c3, which means they don't have equity or shareholders, right? You do have a board that governs your decisions, but at the same time, there's no equity. So to follow a question that we kind of wanted to learn as well is, and I've asked this, do you both also have an answer for him before I ask sort of a follow-up question? Would you like to elaborate on the IRS issue with being a 501c3?
What was the question exactly?
Yeah, it's having an important source of the income from services, right? Is in terms of the scrutiny from the IRS, not just presentation reporting, but also audits. How difficult is for you if you have an important portion from services? Right?
So, well, I don't have a definite answer for that, and I'm not going to ballpark it, but I will say that this is the first social enterprise for the nonprofit, so it's definitely a new experience for us to incorporate, for us to generate income, but of course, how it's being reinvested back to the programs. It's basically helping us, develop new systems in the accounting department as well as the whole entire agency as well. So.
So as an issue that I look at pretty closely, the test that as I understand it is there's an IRS circular on it, which it really revolves around whether or not the revenue that's generated is in line with their stated mission. So as long as it's in line with your stated mission, it doesn't matter. You can run a business as a nonprofit as long as the activities you're performing seek your nonprofit mission. And actually, you can do 35% in line with your mission as well. That's how the fire department can throw a fair and make money off it, right? Like the Kiwis or whatever can have a party and make revenue off of it. Because as long as 65% of your revenue comes from in line, and the rest of it is using assets or resources that are not used for your nonprofit mission, you're still good. So it's not as hard as one would think to do, as long as one is. I think the key is actually stating your nonprofit. If your nonprofit is stating your nonprofit mission carefully to ensure that the work you're doing, the revenue you're generating, is in line with the nonprofit mission. And the IRS probably doesn't care about that.
Just, so for the IRS, they make a differentiation between unrelated business income and related business income. So UBI is unrelated. You can actually help. I did not know that about the 35%, so I don't know. No, I should look into that. But if it's unrelated business income, as long as you pay taxes, you're good. So nonprofits can actually have for-profit entities that they do a service that's unrelated to the mission, and as long as they're paying taxes, then you don't have an unfair advantage, and you can operate like that.
So Roland, you're giving away all the trade secrets. Don't do that. This is not the market. We don't want them to outdo you, right? I mean, I'm just kidding. So I think that it is important to realize that there are tax implications to how you establish. Now, did you guys do your own filing, or did you find a proper channel that advised you on setting up a nonprofit? That's what I wanted to find out. Is when you were starting, how did you know that this is what you wanted to file? A lot of us may be in that boat.
You mean, wait, is the question,
So how
do we know we want to be a nonprofit?
Or a 501c3
could we find those
registered?
taxes?
Yeah. Start with how, and then you could elaborate into.
How, I don't know, it seemed like a good idea at the time. It was fun, right? Being a nonprofit sounds exciting. You just tell people about it. It's awesome, right? It's probably not necessarily as worth it as people think it turns out. People think they'd be like, I'm a nonprofit, I'm gonna go like get people to give me money. Like the world of fundraising a nonprofit is like relatively cutthroat. So it's actually a lot easier to just sell people things and make money. And so for the first 5 years being a nonprofit was really not inconsequential. I think the only thing if you're not making money, you don't owe taxes, right? So like we're spending our money on nonprofit programs, so we're not like taking home money at the end of the day. So our taxes would have been zero anyway. I mean, we get some exemptions from sales tax. That's probably the biggest kind of nicety there. But those don't carry exactly if you're selling things. So it's only use in nonprofit programs, not for sales items. So like we have to pay sales tax on items that are used for some of our work. So I mean, I think there's some small advantages like that. It is a little bit more of probably a nightmare in the startup phase, only because you have to have more oversight and you have to have a board and other types of activities to be a nonprofit. If you just started a business, you would be much cleaner because at a small scale you wouldn't need all of that. So I think that's what I probably learned, is that it would have been probably easier to like start a for-profit, do the work that we did for 5 years until we were big enough to actually go raise some money from someone, and then spin up a nonprofit, like give the assets of the for-profit over the nonprofit, right? And you gotta call it a day on that.
So wait, did I just hear you say if you had to go back and do this again, I would not be a nonprofit, and you would start for the first, you said 5 years.
I probably, unless, I mean, I'm a relatively blunt person, so like, if you're a great fundraiser, like you get out in the community and like you can make connections with people and raise funds or find like folks who want to fund your activity, then by all means you can be a nonprofit. We were doing something that every time we told someone, they're like, that sounds interesting, and then they'd walk away. Because like the concept of physical innovation and making in Houston, it just it didn't hit at the time, right? It's big in everywhere else in the country apparently, but Houston is like, we'll send out the oil field or something, I guess, I'm not sure. And so no one wanted to do any of the activities that we were doing. And so we just kind of had to go at our own. So if you can raise money at the very beginning, I would say awesome, do that. We're kind of doers and makers, you know, meritocracy of making maybe. And so we just tended to do stuff. So we like teach some classes to raise some money. And so if you had that type of activity we had, I would for sure have started as just an LLC or something, or a private proprietorship or something, and then spun up a nonprofit once we got to the scale where we had changed people's minds and shown them the business model, and companies and other institutions wanted to invest. I think that would probably would have saved me some headaches.
Awesome. And Jimmy, could you share when you were, I mean, you launched just a month ago, September. You said soft launch.
Yeah.
So when did you actually register this entity, and was there a resource that helped you figure out that a 501c3 is the right way to go or not?
Well, the agency itself, the nonprofit Sarah Jobs, had existed since 1965. So we were pretty much doing it backwards. Or in this case, we developed the social enterprise concept after the fact that we were already a 501c3. That's the only difference. It was the main goal initially was to make sure that we can create a place where young adults will be able to learn the soft skills needed to transition to a good career path. But also at the same time was to establish a place where employers and job seekers could meet and over coffee and tea and pretty much break bread and just be able to relax in a relaxed environment, coffee shop environment. But after that, it was more like, okay, well, this is a business. So the thought process behind that was to develop new systems within the agency, and that's pretty much what helped us really determine if it's going to sustain as part of the umbrella for the nonprofit agency, or if it was going to be an LLC, a separate entity. But the agency decided to have it as a program, to where it is a training program. So every cup of coffee, every cup of tea or snack was going to reinvest back to the training program. So it wasn't like someone was going to benefit from it necessarily, like this one person or an entity. It was more like the participants were actually going to be provided a good quality training program because of every proceed that everyone was purchasing a cup of coffee.
Kind of started because that one guy really wanted a really good cup of coffee, and he's like, we should build out a training center for this.
Absolutely, yeah, it starts like that sometimes.
All right, so Rafael, could you also answer that when you were establishing,
So when Genesys Works started 16 years ago, the concept of a for-profit social enterprise didn't really exist that much. It didn't really get steam until about maybe the last 10 years. So right now the question is very, very different, but the answer to that is where does your revenue come from? If you have a business model that allows you earn income to make the entity become a profitable entity, right? And you can have, then you capitalize the entity through impact investing or traditional investing, and it's very, very different to capitalize an entity with that as opposed to philanthropy. If your business model is such that you don't expect reaching that level of sustainability, you're going to need philanthropy to make up the gap, right? And if you're going to need philanthropy to make up the gap, you need to be a 501c3, right? Which is no other way to it, unless you have some source of funds that can help fund the organization. But just rich uncle maybe, but that's not very sustainable. And so the question is, what is your business model, and how are you going to capitalize this? I agree with Roland. If your business plan allows you to achieve full profitability, I think it's a lot easier to start a for-profit company. Number one. Number two, after 16 years of stepping down from Genesys Works, and I've encountered two things. Well, the first one wasn't a surprise. Number one, when I leave Genesys Works, I'm taking no equity with me. There is no equity. There's no founder equity. There's no exit strategy. There's no liquidity event, right? And you just need to be comfortable with that. I'm happy. I'm just thankful to be able to have had the impact on the people that we did, and that's what you take with you. But you don't take any cash. So that's one thing. But the other thing is the surprise of one, perhaps a transition back to a for-profit environment, that there's this idea, this perception of people that say, well, you're a nonprofit guy. Nonprofits are kind of, it's not as robust as a for-profit entity. Managing a nonprofit is kind of like nice, right? Like, what do you do for a full-time job? And it's amazing how many people actually think that. Whereas if you really know managing a social enterprise, it's really complicated because you have different stakeholder groups, and not everything's measured with money, with dollars, right? So it's actually more complex to run a multi-million-dollar social enterprise, but you get less credit for doing that. So what I'll say is, if you can do it for profit and have the same social impact that you're seeking to have, do that.
Great. Okay, so we have a question here. Okay, go ahead.
This is a question for you, Rafael. I like your idea. My curiosity is, you say young adults, so what is the minimum age for them to have that experience? And also, how are you differentiating yourself from Starbucks when they have experience too? And the Starbucks brand is actually, as of now, much bigger. So how do you do that?
Okay, definitely. So young adults is anyone who's an opportunity youth between the ages 16 to 24. So part of what Roland was also talking about, working with other agencies, is that we work with Workforce Solutions, which is a program that's funded through the Houston-Galveston Area Council. So they also have identified and provided funding, set aside funding specifically for disconnected opportunity youth between the ages of 16 and 24 to be able to obtain an internship, to be able to obtain scholarships in high growth, high demand occupations. So we partnered with the Workforce Solutions program to help leverage the internship stipends that they can provide to also provide a paid stipend to a young adult, you know, between that age range, 16 to 24. But also the difference between, I get that a lot. What's the difference between Starbucks and La Chamba? Well, many reasons, honestly. I mean, it's an effort that you see a local initiative, a local effort that's literally impacting the Houston future workforce. Not to say that, you know, I'm not sure the operations, how, you know, Starbucks, I don't think they'll be able to say that pitch, you know, proudly or profoundly like I would, or the agency would in this case, because we literally help out young adults specifically who need that opportunity to learn the fundamental skills to keeping a job, learning also customer service skills, which are transferable skills to any industry, but at the same time be able to receive mentorship, leadership skills, and entrepreneurship skills at the same time, because it's definitely within the nonprofit organization, so they're meeting with their career coaches as well. So it's that approach of working in a care team model approach to where the young adult would not be left alone, literally, without speaking or saying hi to their career coach, without, you know, saying hi to the CEO of the agency, and to still be able to learn, you know, the fundamentals of having a job.
Thank you. And one more.
I was gonna say, if you don't give me the mic back, we may have the White House.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so obviously there's like a supply and demand. How do you hire these kids that can have that opportunity to have that experience?
Yeah, so that's definitely part of the Workforce Solutions program. You know, since they have funding available to help out, you know, the young adults, it's more of aligning a young adult who needs an opportunity. So so we don't do the outreach necessarily. We can, and I think that's something that will be important to do so. But it's also career coaches' responsibilities, Workforce Solutions' responsibility to recruit and outreach as well. Let the community know, you know, that these types of programs do exist, and then the assessment takes place, and then it's finding out, hey, you know, the young person may even say, I need a job, but I never had a job. You know, I need some, you know, money generating so that I can go to school or whatnot. And at that point, that's when, you know, La Chamba may be an opportunity for them. Just like any other type of job, they go through the same rites of passage. You know, they submit their resume, they submit an email indicating that they're interested in applying for La Chamba. That makes it a lot more official. In other words, to help them prepare, flex that muscle to, you know, be prepared once they complete La Chamba's internship. They can, you know, put that practice into action. And then, so it's definitely mentorship from the very beginning at the same time. Even if they never had an official interview or submitted a resume before, that opportunity is given to them. But we leverage our partners at Workforce Solutions to recruit.
So, Roland, there is a question for you, so I'm gonna let her ask it.
But I believe
Go
I'm
for it.
answering the question that I wanted to ask, not the question that was asked.
Okay, go for
And I
it.
want to respond to that question real quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Only because
No problem.
I believe in this statement very strongly for people who want to be social entrepreneurs, which is everything everyone tells you is a lie. When you start, you always ask people this, right? What's the secret, right? Like, what's the secret to what we're doing? And people tell you the stories they want to tell themselves, right? And that is not how it works at all. Like, we work with Workforce Solutions, right? Like, we work with all the community centers that get students, and it's like, your question is points to a very important thing, which is, the real answer is this term opportunity youth, actually, like, there's a secret, which is, all of the nonprofit world right now is like on fire with apprenticing and opportunity youth. And like, once you know that term, right, like it opens up the door to the funding, right? And the fact that we say youth and you're kind of like, what does youth mean, right? I think it shows a little bit of an important part if you want to be a social entrepreneur, which is you have to deep dive into what exists in the funding streams right now. And you have to learn what the funders want to fund, what the terms are for those people, and then what exists in the network. And you got to find novel ways to link those things together. So I think it's just important to, like, as you're listening to there's so much lingo actually in these discussions when we like respond. All that lingo is like tying back very tightly to the funding streams that we're leveraging. I think that's just an important point.
So so I'm an educator. So in my head, I try to do the bottom line. So far, I've heard that whatever your mission is, up to 65% you can do that and still do other things to make money. So that's good. I've also learned that you're relying on strategic partners to do a lot of things. And then I've also learned that it's not 100% of your revenue coming from one source. You've kind of said that you've got multiple things. So 33% of it could be coming from Z and another 33A. So cool. Now she's been waiting patiently. I'm gonna let her ask her question.
Thanks. This might be kind of a part B to what you just answered, actually. So I heard you saying that your product is really these youths that are ready to be in the workplace, and your contributors are like the nonprofits and the companies, right? So I also heard you say that you might not do it the nonprofit way if you could go back. So can you give us like an example or walk us through, if you could go back, how you might connect those contributors to your product in a way that's not in the nonprofit, like, right?
Well, yeah, so I think it's how we spun up the different lines, I guess you'd say. Like, we started with just pure, we kind of call it community outreach, which was classes, memberships, and fabrication work. So those, to some degree, you can make that, and there's companies in town like Sparks, and there's groups like that do that type of work. And so you could start a company that does that sort of work. So that's what we probably would have done. Just started the kind of classes, membership, and ideation work as a for-profit, gotten up to scale. The thing that I was kind of trying to say that it's also about packaging, right? Like, it's how you package what you're selling. You have to go find out what's the hot topic right now. Like, okay, right now down the pipeline is coming pre-apprenticing. Like, White House is all about pre-apprenticing. There's like tons of money in the works for pre-apprenticing. If you are on top of that right now, like when pre-apprenticing hits, if you can package what you're doing as a pre-apprenticing program, like you're gonna be way ahead of the curve, because like all the big organizations are just figuring out like, what do we do about that, right? And so you have to figure out what you've got as a resource, and then you have to take it and package it and figure out what funding streams. So I think once we had that piece, in my opinion, then we could have taken the training capabilities we had, the fabrication work that we needed done that can be tied to apprenticing, and the facility that can be used for youth programs, right? And the community that we built of engineers and volunteers and stuff who could be leveraged for those sort of activities. And we would have packaged that as kind of what we're selling to these companies, and then gone out and started the nonprofit activity, which is saying, here's this unique resource we have that we can bring to bear on nonprofit activities, because most nonprofits don't have technical backends, they don't have legal resources needed for real STEM work. And so we could have gone and leveraged that to then sell a unique kind of product to the nonprofits, to the foundations and the companies that want to invest in it. So I think that's the ordering that I would have done it in, probably in reverse.
All right, so there is a question for all of them in the back. Do you want to just stand up here?
Hi, and my name is Neha, and I may be a bit new to this social enterprise world, but one aspect that I keep coming back to is a lot of, your pre-apprenticing with the youth or the young adults. Well, many of them come from environments, or their background is a bit turbulent, and sometimes what makes it difficult is for them to stay on track. And yes, you have mentorships or whatnot, but you know, oftentimes you're a product of your circumstances. What do you do to ensure that they stay on track and that there's not a lot of turnover, and that you're actually helping as much as you possibly can, but at the same time using that fine balance of also keeping your business alive and keeping your sanity, to say the least.
Man, it's really tough. So I appreciate your question because it shows that you have an insight into how difficult it can be. I mean, life gets in the way. It's really tough. I mean, you see stuff in the news, and none of the stuff that our students experience even makes it to the news, right? I can tell you stories that make you cry. What we like to hang on to is the belief in the human spirit, and tenacity, and persistence, and overcoming. We create a support structure for our students to have not only caring adults, but also peers. And we create a culture in which they can support one another through their hard times. In terms of intense need, students don't have anyone to turn to. And if through the work that we do, we can provide that caring adult, and it could be a number of different caring adults. It could be the supervisor in the workplace. It could be the program coordinator that they work with. It can be their peers. Then we can make a real difference. And you know, so we have some really horrible stories of what happens to students, but then we also have amazing success stories of grit and determination, and that's, quite frankly, what gives me hope.
So I know you mentioned about, what if there's still mentorship and there's still, people that support and provide guidance, but there's that high turnover rate. Well, there's that opportunity for that high turnover rate. But it's really, that's part of the investment of the social enterprise. It's still an investment for anyone who's going through, who's walking through the doors for the nonprofit organization. It's a leverage of meeting them halfway. It's not to say that they're not going to be motivated at that time. No, they need to be motivated actually. It's not like something that we're forcing a young person to show up to La Chamba or to the agency itself. It's more of meeting them halfway, and that's where it starts. But it's the care team model. I think that also helps out. It's identifying if they have a support group within their household or not. That's our side. Because it's not just like that's coming from the nonprofit approach. The approach of helping out any person, making sure that whatever they aspire to do, that they are still aligned with that, and they're not applying to Whataburger when they just completed a welding training program. It's accountability at the same time. So it's having deep conversations. It's definitely setting in writing, developing these types of employment plans and everything like that to make sure that we're receiving their input, their side as well, so that it's a 50-50 approach. And more than anything is ultimately they're the drivers. They're the ones who are driving this the momentum. So definitely, it's a working progress.
You can always count on me for your contrarian opinion. I believe it's actually about authenticity. I'll tell you a story about our first job training program we did, and we taught a group of students drafting and did laser cutting with them. It was actually a little bit of a rough start because we went into it thinking we're going to teach them CAD, we're going to teach them AutoCAD. We have some groups that need drafting work lined up. We're going to get that lined up, and they found drafting to be incredibly boring. It was just more of the same stuff they've done in high school. It was more of the same type of job training work they've done. And so about halfway through, you could just tell we were losing them, and we just changed it up, and we took them out and started
using the laser cutter. We have a bunch of laser cutters. So we let them start making their own products, right? So here are these kids. I have kids that are 23, 24-year-old, like in and out of prison or jail or whatever. Total disrespect for authority. They don't want to be there. They're being forced there. They go out one day and they cut templates out of cardboard, and they make T-shirts, like just with bleach and a T-shirt, right? And like one kid takes the Rolls-Royce logo and like modifies it with his name, and these 4 kids run inside, and my education director, Joseph Miller, is sitting there, and they run up to Joe and they like hold their T-shirts in front of him, right? And they're like, "Look at what I made." I was like, it was almost not embarrassing. It was like too much. It was like a hallmark moment, right? And we realized at that day that the traditional systems make them part of the product, right? It's like, you talk about HCC, right? Like HCC needs to put butts in seats. They get funded through putting butts in seats, right? Like, and so to some degree, like as people fail in and fail out, it's just about, did we meet the criteria that the funding organization set, right? Like, did they get a job? It doesn't matter if it was for a day. Did they get hired for one day, right? If they did, great, like check a box off and then they go on, right? So like, these people know this. The kids in the program, they realize that no one cares about them, that the system's just running and they're part of it. And if you can connect with them and make them realize, like, you care. Like just recently, the kid Trey, who I taught how to operate a press break, he came to me and he was like, "Man, I've been screwing up here, and you didn't kick me out, and you care." And like, he started crying in front of me. I mean, I don't know what to do because I'm not that type of person. But the meaning is that, at least from my opinion about social entrepreneurship, is that you can't be like everyone else. Like, there are lots of large organizations, right, that are getting massive amounts of funding and really actually getting really poor results with that funding, but we just make sure we check all the right boxes. If you want to be a real social entrepreneur, you have to figure out, how do you connect with people, because they want to achieve things. They've just been lied to a whole lot, and so you're not going to catch them and have a real effect with them if you're just another one of those people, or at least you have the traits of the people that have been pursuing the lives of them. So I think, in my opinion, that is what really allows you to change someone's life trajectory, is being that person that they can trust, that they know has authenticity and passion for assisting them. And of course, all the other stuff, mentorship, financial training, wraparound services, all the stuff that's part of the nonprofit world is there. But I think that's the core of it.
All right, Roland, you took a shot at HCC, so I got to respond to you. But I think
it's not your fault. It's just a funding model issue, right? It's just how the system works.
No. So
grants are paid by how many butts we have in seats. It even works for us, right? Like every person who walks in my door and I get for 3 weeks and stays in the program, whether they drop out or not, I get $6,000. So as long as they stay for 3 weeks, like, why would I care? And that's just the complacency that the system breeds. Like, why does that system not look at how many people we actually place, how much they actually make over their lifetime, right? Like, we don't really look at those things. We look at easy metrics because everyone wants metrics. Metrics are expensive, so let's make some easy metrics.
So I'm not denying what you're saying. What I am saying is, unless you said social entrepreneurs, so Shiroy and Grace could also vouch for this and say, why wouldn't you want to fix that system? Our large institutions that have access to bond money, every local tax homeowner that pays, there's millions of dollars going towards the institution. So bond money, state allocations, and student tuition, all 3 of them combined gets them a budget of $370 million, right? So it's why I am trying to fix that system,
Me,
right?
I'm all over you.
Our goal.
I'm with every department y'all have.
So our goal would be to realize that there are opportunities within these large systems to come in as a vendor, to come in as a group that can provide that specialized service. There are grants that those institutions have access to that you alone would not. So instead of sticking it to the man, I think you probably want to figure out a way to partner with the man to help him fix it. And it takes different type of, but imagine if all of a sudden your nonprofit was able to partner with the gorilla in the room to do the same mission. I think as a college, we are realizing the value we add to the college, with the community, and in the past 4 years, I think the brand of HCC has truly changed. So my office didn't exist. The Office of Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship, where we offer free workshops to the community. We offer small business workshops, and then we have students, some of them in the audience, that have no vision to be an entrepreneur, but now they're profitable businesses winning awards, in the community. So we now have products that we can be proud of, but that didn't exist. 50 years ago when the school, soon it'll be coming to this 50th anniversary, but think about that as you're trying to solve this big problem is how could you partner and make those institutions do better? If they're not, that's because that hasn't been their goal. Because like you said, it's always been, if you get the people to sit down in their butts or something, you use that word, but that's all they're getting paid. Why else would they do anything different? Unless somebody stood up and said, we should be doing something, we should care, because if we're not producing, talent that the community needs or the industry needs, well, we're wasting their time and our community money. So unless we fix it, no one else will. So I just wanted to make sure that the highlight should be that HCC is changing. I would say. But
Since you mentioned my name.
yes, Grace, go ahead.
It's not either or, it is both, right? So there's this whole spectrum of things that we can do to change this. And the advantage of a TXRX labs is that they're not beholden to a ginormous board and trustees and this big system, and they can be, quick, lean, efficient, and get results fast, right? So as they're iterating, then there are the Ravis and the people within the academic institutions and these larger organizations that can help reshape, evolve those organizations as well. It's not either or.
And since the mic's on that side, I think she has
Yeah,
a question, or he has a question. Because I've been biased on this side. I was just looking at the mic.
So my question goes back to a couple of things where we talked about nonprofit versus for-profit. What are your thoughts about having a nonprofit actually spin out a for-profit with a hybrid organization? And then also, do any of you have strong opinions about fiscal sponsorships for somebody that is looking to start trying to see if they can fundraise and decide whether they actually want to be a nonprofit?
Who wants to take it on? So we'll see you after the event, sir. How about Crystal? I know you had a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
The question was asked, it deserves an answer.
All right, deserves an answer. Anybody?
I want to respect your question, even though fundraising sucks.
Right.
It's hard. It's just hard to fundraise in the nonprofit world. You bring and you develop some expertise and insights. And like you said, I want to know who's paying you $6,000 per student, because that'll get rid of all of our problems. So I'll follow up with you. But you have a terribly inefficient philanthropic system that has the person with the funding that achieved that funding through success, well-earned success, but doesn't know your space at all. And they come in and they either provide that funding unrestricted because they love what you do, or what happens often is they say, we love what you do, but here's some money for you to do something different. And it drives us crazy. So 80% of qualified people that could be CEOs or executive directors of nonprofits choose not to become one because of fundraising. Fundraising is tough. Fundraising is not fun. Some people are really good at it, but there's not that many of them. I'm not one of them. Okay? So if you have a social purpose and you're driven by that and it's convincing and it's unique enough and you don't have the financial model that's going to lead to profitability, that's your only choice. You better be really good at it. And you better be able to be diversified, get it through foundations, get it through individuals, etc. But if there's any way that you can create revenue without fundraising, I don't really do it.
Yeah.
Thanks. So Roland, going back to you, I just want to say I appreciate when I was with Corporate America, we visited your labs for advanced manufacturing, and 3D printing, and through those learnings, we could teach the students and reach back. So you were part of the system, so we appreciate that, and it educated me a lot. But going back to what you said with the expansion, can you speak, whether it be on the ideation or the innovation types of concepts, how you guys are expanding?
So I kind of proved out our model, and then so we went to our national tour, and every other city is leveraging basically deals that involve multiple components. Houston is the only town that, like, we single source everything. Like, either it's a commercial developer doing it, right, or it's a full foundation doing it, right? Like in Indianapolis, they've got foundations, they've got CDCs, they've got CDFIs, they've got LISC is throwing in. I mean, they have these really great kind of novel funding models that are doing really innovative work. Houston does none of that. I guess we don't have to because we are big company driven. I don't know how long that'll hold out, but hopefully forever. And so we went on this tour and looked around nationally and realized there's all these pools of money floating around. The city has $168 million in Section 108 loans around for CDCs that hasn't been touched in like 19 years, basically because no one needs to touch it. And so we just kind of like beat our drum loud enough and, you know, made a ruckus for a while, and we cobbled together an EDA grant, a 108 loan, an EIC loan grant, a little bit of our own equity, and founded a CDC, and then used that to basically purchase a property, and are turning that into basically a larger facility for ideation, job training, and youth training as well. I don't know if that was a good answer to your question or not.
No, that helps, thank you.
Jimmy, what's your plan for scale? I mean, you're the youngest social entrepreneur on the panel. You said a month ago, right?
Yeah, I think part of the 5-year plan that was set from the agency was to eventually, be able to pitch this to other SAREs across the nation, with the approach of course, catering to every city that SARE is located in. And so a lot of it has to deal, the stem, I would say, from the original goal, the original dream for La Chamba came from Homeboy Industries. And so Homeboy Industries is actually a nonprofit organization that has multiple types of social enterprises in Los Angeles that helps out, anyone who's actually in the process of reintegrating back to society from being incarcerated. And so Sarah Jobs has been seeing that model as a successful model because of the transformation. And so that's been something that the leadership has set as part of the 10-year goal, but within 5 years, depending how well La Chamba becomes and becomes self-sustained, that's the goal, is we can then pitch it to other organizations as well, and have their spin at it as well, to incorporate their own ownership to it.
Okay, Rafael, you just announced that after 15 years you're stepping down, but what is the future of Genesys work? How is it scaling or not? You tell me.
Yeah, so to be very honest with you, I think 16 years to be founder and CEO of an organization is too long. I wish I had the courage to leave a little bit earlier. I think that we all bring our skills and our insights into our positions, and I think after 10 years, you can do amazing things. After 10 years, you're done. Like, you could dream all the ideas that were going to come out of you did, right? We were, and again, just every time I came up with, no, maybe this is my time to step down. The board would be like, oh no, but what if we can do this? What if we can do that? Okay, great. I've got a couple of years. Well, this time I really am gone. And we hired a replacement who's a person that up to last month was running an organization, Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is 15 times our size. And so he's going to bring really that enterprise knowledge. I was very super proud and grateful to have taken it from an idea to a company, and now I hope that he's going to take it from a company to an enterprise that can serve the lives of not just a few thousand students a year, but truly a much greater number. What I told him is, if you can do for the Genesys Works brand what you did to the Make-A-Wish brand, can you imagine how many young people we could serve. And so I think that the future for Genesys Works is extremely bright. But I took the founder and get it out of the way.
Okay, so I've got the sign, it's 5 more minutes. What I would love for all of you to share is if you had to go back to your high school self, what advice would you give to that person, whether it's just in life or in the business? If you could, what advice would you give? Whoever's ready. We've got 5 minutes, so don't take make it quick.
But I have the most mistakes to recount. What would I do different? I think that the truth is that we have grown really organically, pivoted a lot, because I'm an engineer by training, which is indicative of my lack of social skills. And so I think I probably would have spent more time less focused on kind of the side that I thought was most important, which was the engineering and like capability side, and more time learning the kind of business, interpersonal, the way the system works. Because the truth is that that actually ends up being the most important part, and it's pretty much what I do all the time now. I don't really get to do what I enjoy, which is the prototyping work and the fabrication and design that I really started for. I spend my time doing meetings and such, proposals and such. So I think if I honed that side a little bit more early on, because in the fundraising and kind of side of the business which we're in now, that's really the most important part. So,
I'm not ready yet. Actually, high school self, that's a long time. And there's just so much happens between high school and young adulthood. So I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to say, what would I do after college? Okay. And what would I tell my after college self? And what I would say is take more risks, do it faster. Take more risks, do it faster. That's what I would say.
That's excellent advice. All right, Jimmy, come on. She's going to kick me off.
Yeah. I would just say, follow whatever it is that you want to do, that you want to pursue, and give it a try. Even if you're not successful with doing that, at least you gave it a try and you learned from all the lessons that you did and made. That's it.
Awesome. So I guess I have a minute, and I'll just add. Could we get a round of applause for this? Celebrating the success and also sharing the story. I think it's very valuable for the community, the ecosystem that Impact Hub is creating. I think it's important to one, be inspired and be infected by your entrepreneurial journey, but then also for us to know that it's hard and it's not easy. It's not all the glamour, even at the position where you are, right? So Roland, thanks for sharing that. Jimmy, thanks for telling us where you are. And I think Jimmy's looking for partners, and always. So, and then Rafael, you've got a tremendous amount of experience. I would approach him with, we've got an offer for you to run this, kind of a deal, because he's got this. So thanks so much, and thank you so much. So we'll wrap up, and I think you guys will be around to kind of after the, okay. So Michelle, do we do justice to the event? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much, Robbie. Thank you for hosting a fantastic panel. So with that, we're going to have about a 5 to 7 minute break. It's not going to be very long, so please don't run off. But we had to spend a lot of time this morning, pre-lunch and post-lunch, talking about the social enterprise side, learning about structuring businesses and thinking about how those structures lead to revenue generation and how do you finance those structures. And once we come back from a quick transition and a break, we are going to start talking a lot more about the financing side. How do you think about how money flows into supporting and scaling these organizations? And so 5 to 7 minutes, talk amongst yourselves. Don't get up unless you have to. We'll be back in just a second.
We're going to do our TED Talk.
And I'll facilitate that in the Q&A. So are you okay going in the middle? So Derek's gonna go first, and then you, and then, all right. And we'll just have the slides up there and yep. Lapel mic properly?
That'd be great, because I'm
Yes, well, no, just one or the other.
Okay, that's fine. We only need lapel mics then. So I'll play with the other microphone, and then I'll just go to lapel one of them. Then we can throw both lapel mics on, okay? Thanks, Bob.
That's the strategy.
Hi, good, how are you? Oh, hi, I'm Caitlin Black. I'm just waiting for Jamie, she's just coming to fix. I'll let her dictate. I think it's like whatever you feel Mark's comfortable with. Do you want to sit?
Derek's gonna go first.
I think so, unless it looks like it's Facebook Live actually. Is it Facebook Live?
I think maybe. Yes. Apparently so. Is that okay?
That's fine. Just wondering where it's being brought in.
It looks like this type of thing. It's like
Yeah, so
cabinets at this point. Didn't really hear what you were doing. I'll make crack the door so we get a better
Just turn it on when you're ready. Where'd you drive in from? Oh, okay. Are you from Austin?
Now I am. Yeah, I've been there for grad school there. I live there.
UT?
UT, yeah.
Okay, nice. No, I grew up in the Chicago area, but I went to, what was the policy school?
LBJ?
Yeah, so I went to the equivalent A&M.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, we always did from the competition softball and stuff. What years ago?
I remember that. I was there like 2010 to 2012. I think that was it. Yeah. Not my best. Did you know Jamie, or did you know, who did you know? Have you been to Rice before? Have you been on campus, or?
I've been on campus, yeah, a couple times. It's my first time.
Hi, good.
Can't tell if this thing is still on.
Very loyal fans.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That's my